So this, in the introduction, in the intro, I talked about why I designed this talk, and where are they going with that? The idea is it's evolved over time, and I think every time I give it, I give new anecdotes because I've learned more. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through, and see where it takes us here. So where was this modeled after? So I see enough older faces. There's some young faces in the audience, but enough older faces to know David Letterman. Remember David Letterman top 10 list? He always did the top, and the top 10 was this. So I kind of like that. It had a nice jingle to it. And then any golfers in the audience here, or pseudo golfers like myself who try? Yeah, okay. So if you get the Golf for Dummies book, it's Gary McCord, the famous Miss Bikini Wax mustache fame. He wrote a top 10 list in the appendix. I love it. And rule number 5 was, whatever you do, don't give your spouse golf lessons. Okay, so that was so it's in that vein that I said, I need a top 10 list for medicine. I need a top 10 list of things I've learned that I really wish I knew going in. And some of this, they say you got to learn from your experience, but maybe here's a little foreshadowing. Okay, so that's the kind of way I frame it for young people. And for those of us who are older in the audience, I think you'll probably agree with much of what I have to say here. So, and we have a little snafu with our mouse. Not going. Frozen screen. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So nothing to disclose except, again, internal conflicts. And this was actually just to kind of give us a sense of who's here, but I'm going to just skip this slide because we have, I think, 2 PharmDs, at least 6 MDs. We have no DOs. We have 2 APRNs, right? 2 or 3. Someone is a DAP. AP? I don't know what that was. Okay, but we're a very diverse group. Let's put it that way. So with that in mind, kind of how do I frame this? So the first thing I would say, if I was giving you my top 10 list, the first thing that comes to mind is an essay by Sir William Osler called Equanimitas. And that's Latin for equanimity. And as I would discover going through my travails of medicine, this is this so-called, first of all, we're talking Osler, we're talking turn of the century, Sir William Osler, turn of the century, okay? Equanimitas. He was talking about, Stephen Curry's sweet, the sweet spot, the zone, when you're in the zone. What does it mean? When everything is going the way it should, when you're balanced, when everything in the zone, and I thought, wow, isn't that what we're supposed to be like when we're practicing? We're not supposed to be thinking, about what's in our head and how well we slept or didn't sleep, or what's going on with our kids, or, our marital conflict, or, significant other. We're really supposed to be on our game, and Osler says this so beautifully in this essay. And if you have the opportunity to read it, you'll go, wow, this is like prophecy. This is prophetic, because this is really where the doctor needs to be, the healer needs to be, is this place of balance. And for me, I've gone through lots of, tumult in my life, and just as all of us. And I would say one of the ways, we talk about coaching. One of the things that I do, I belong to a men's group. It's a circle of 6 men. And we meet every other week and we hash out our stuff, But I also belong to a men's organization in Connecticut, and we have weekend retreats where we work on men's stuff, And my neighbors who aren't in the men's circles, they say, "What do? You go there and you smoke cigarettes and watch porn?" I go, "No, actually, that's not what we do." He goes, "Well, you hold hands and sing Kumbaya?" I go, "Actually, that's closer to what we do." Okay, so. But the idea that in the men's the workshops that I do and all this stuff, and I bring my works to the work. So it's co-creation. So the men who attend on the weekends, actually, some of them are, bring their skills, they bring their talents, and we work together. But one of the things is, as I'm there, I'm always trying to discover I'm constantly in the quest for meaning. What is why am I here? What does this balance thing mean? And then there I am at the YMCA resort, YMCA camp, not a resort, like a YMCA camp in Chester, Connecticut. And there's the YMCA emblem, and it says mind, body, and spirit. And I go, oh, yeah, that's it. That's the secret, right? The YMCA knew it, and really, that's for me what this means. For each of you, you got to figure it out for yourself. For me, it's like I gotta be taking care of myself. I gotta be, thinking about my creative force and where that comes from, the spirituality, and I really have to pay attention to, my physical health, so finding our sweet spot, and we all know it when we see it. We know when we see people who are using their God-given talents and they have found that place. That's where we're going. That's what I think Oster was talking about. And for each of us, this is a self-discovery. So I tell the residents who are keep exercising. You eat right, keep eating right. A lot of people will put things off and they say, if only tomorrow, if I can, and that's not, it's about only, today. And so what can you do to keep this balance? So I would recommend his essay, among other things. It's not that long and it's very interesting. And I think it will frame the idea of balance or equanimity that the healer should bring to the healing arts. The second is, in medicine, we work with a lot of elite learners. These are the people who were the top of the class or were the teacher's pet. And so they have a very hierarchical way of thinking. I respect you if you're my teacher. Otherwise, get out of my way. There's a lot of students who really, they come into the medical school with, evaluation on the mind. Evaluation drives the system. If you're not evaluating me, move aside, and it's obviously very myopic, and it's so incredibly far from what learning is all about, right? Because we all know, I don't need to tell you in the room, that our teachers are all around us. Our teachers are our patients, our teachers are the staff we work with, the nurses, everyone, no matter what their rank. And I remember working, so in the physical diagnosis, we're going to learn about in the next part of this with the physical exam. In physical diagnosis, we developed a teaching lab where we had clinical skills, where we have patient instructors and we have medical students, and they're being observed. They're with the patient instructor, and we have a secret room. We sit outside and we literally observe them. And Yale at the time, UConn, we were ahead of the game. And Yale didn't have this, even with all their resources. So they would come with their students and their professors and sit in our lab with the Yale students. And I remember this distinguished Yale professor sitting next to me. And I asked him, so what do you look for as you watch the student? He goes, and we have this checklist which says, did they do the Weber, the Rena, did they percuss, did they palpate? And I asked him, so what do you watch? And he goes, I watch how they receive feedback. And I go, what? He goes, no, I just watch. When the patient instructor gives them the feedback, I watch how resistant or not resistant they are to that feedback. Because these are Yale students. They're going to learn how to do that technique. They're going to learn it. But that's the real sensitive place. How do they receive negative feedback? Because they're not going to do everything right. They're in there with someone who's not in their lineage, giving them feedback on their skills. And they're going to, and so I thought, what a powerful way to really poignantly point out that we all have to kind of make sense that go back to the knowledge domain. We don't know everything, and everyone around us, if we are ready, suddenly teachers appear, and students need to hear this right from the get-go. And I needed to hear it too, because I was one of those driven students who really had that sort of narrow vision about who was going to teach me and who wasn't. So the flip side of that is, I as a program director for 12 years, which is probably 7 years more than I should have done it. Because the average program director right now, the regulation in GME is so crazy. It's the last place you want to be. But that said, and then there's a whole paradigm shift in the training model, which is hard to get used to. And then there's the fact that when you have residents as a program director, you have additional children. And I already had my twin daughters, which were a handful. Now I had 21 new kids. And let me tell you, it was really challenging. But the idea is that every year I would interview every applicant to our program, and I would have to look through applications. Literally, we got 1,000 applications for 100 interviews for 7 positions at the University of Connecticut. And that's not the exception. That's kind of the rule right now. You know, there's just everyone's applying everywhere because there are a lot of spots that go unfilled, but it's this mess of application process. And I'll always get asked the question, what do I look for in a candidate? And I'd say this, you know, I want to see someone who's really curious, someone who is going to constantly be asking questions, someone who likes to observe things. And I think the idea of the child's mind, you know, we've heard that term where you bring, you know, why this, Dad? Why that? Why that? You know, so stop. No, you know, that's the kind of curiosity that I think is going to be helpful to us in healthcare, and that's that curiosity. It's also a sense of joy that you bring to life. I quoted Bernie Siegel, who I had the good pleasure of meeting and having him speak to our residents several times. Bernie is the famous surgeon turned author who wrote Love, Medicine, Miracles, and really championed the whole movement of mind-body medicine, you know, 30 years ago. And he said so many interesting things. And when he talks, he's like a prophet. He's a diminutive man. And he says, people ask me, Bernie, what's the secret to a long life? You know what I tell him? And you can hear a pin drop. He goes, I tell him, get a cat, get a dog, get something that's going to love you back, no matter how bad a day you're ever having. I thought, here's this man of great wisdom telling me to get a cat. So yeah, but Bernie also says, you know, he tries to wake up every day like it's a new, like he's an alien. He goes, I like to walk outside and just look at things, try to look at things differently. I thought, wow, that is a beautiful sense of perhaps how we should approach our work and how we should observe the world. I like to think that maybe I've taken that lesson into my birding, because now I'm an avid birder. And people ask me, why do you like looking at birds? I mean, I think it's the most fascinating hobby. It's like physical diagnosis. You've got to have the behavior. You've got to have the markings. You've got to have the feeding. You've got to know the size, shape. I mean, there's all these things. It's like putting all the clues together. And then you come up with the rich differential diagnosis, you know, and you learn how to tell people, no, that isn't a yellow-breasted sapsucker, you know, instead of saying, no, what are you know, there's a lot of birders out there that make you feel really like this big when you make the wrong ID. So I've quickly learned to take it like I do in medicine. No, it could be that bird, but actually, no, let me go on. So anyway, observation. Humility, you know, if this isn't something I said earlier, you know, to me, the most beautiful thing in medicine is someone who is wise and humble and combines that together. You know, the humility part, anyone who is great at what they do, you know, knows this. I mean, this is the Derek Jeter model of playing ball. You remember watching Derek Jeter? Derek Jeter for the New York Yankees, and I have to admit, I am a Yankee fan. Even though I live right in the middle of Boston Red Sox and New York Yankees country, I am an avid Yankee fan. And I used to love listening to Derek Jeter because he never said the wrong thing. He always complimented the other guy. No matter how great his feat, he always complimented the other team. No matter what happened, he never blamed anyone. You know, it was just a beautiful metaphor for humility. And I think in medicine, we have so many wonderful people and so many gifted people. And the people who combine their gifts with humility. I remember this message when I worked in the Deep South, because I worked in Memphis for 8 years. And that, I thought this was a funny expression, but it brought to light the fact that humility was just, because when I started out, I was gung-ho. I'm going to be great. I'm going to learn everything. And in 10 years, I'm going to be the master of my craft. You know, you get to the 10-year mark and you're like, oh, I know a lot, but there's a lot more. Then you get to the 20-year mark and you're like, yeah, you know, and then you get to the 30-year mark and you're like, there's so much that I need to learn, you know? And so hence the beautiful metaphor of, I don't know what humble pie tastes like, but I know what humility is when I see it. And that's a beautiful thing in medicine. Yeah, so. Okay, so for the golfers among us here, the greatest golf tip ever told. So golf is a beautiful game. I'm gonna get on my soapbox here. It is a metaphor for life. It is, you know, you can have the worst shot in the world, and the next shot is a chance at redemption. You could, it's a beautiful metaphor, and it takes a lot to hit that ball correctly, And so here I was trying to learn how to play, and I went and took a lesson at Southwind, in the TPC in Southwind in Memphis, and that is where John Daly makes his home. The big, interesting, crazy guy with the crazy clothes. Anyway, I went to the pro there who teaches the pros, and he's watching my flawed swing. And meanwhile, I've been studying books. If I'm going to play golf, I'm going to play it right. I'm going to read Hogan's book. I'm going to read this book. I'm going to read that book. I had read them all. I know supination, takeaway, stance, grip, alignment. I knew it. Okay. And he watches me and he goes, "You want to know what you need to do?" I go, "No." He goes, "You know what you need to do?" I go, "No." He goes, you need to focus on the ball." I go, "Focus on the, I thought you were going to tell me it was my grip or my alignment or my takeaway or how I supinate and impact." And he goes, "Focus on the ball." I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "How long does a golf swing take?" And at that point I had studied the art. I knew exactly, it was 0.7 or so, it was some odd, fraction of a second. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "For that 0.7 of a second," he goes, "that swing, that hitting that ball has to be the most important thing that you are doing. The most important thing you're doing. Not what you did on the last hole, not what you're going to do on the next shot, not what you're going to do on the 19th hole when you go in for a drink." He goes, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. I think I'm going to get something from that. But of course, I got a lot more out of that than just the golf swing, because I realized this is Eckhart Tolle's, the power of now. This is understanding the importance of the moment. Like what we're doing right now. I need to be present with you guys. This is the most important thing I'm doing. Not that I'm going to be caring for my elderly dad when I go to see him in 3 hours, but what I'm doing right now, being focused and being present. And I thought, wow, what a gift he gave me with this message, not just for golf, but also for life. And I remember this now, when I'm getting not present with a patient, I'll try to bring it back to being present, because I really want to give them my energy. That means when it's not their time, I take my energy to myself. But when it's their time, I'm going to give them the presence of mind and thought. And I think that's really the power of now. The crude metaphor is, if you have 1 foot in tomorrow and 1 foot in yesterday, you know what you're doing on today. You're peeing on it, And so the idea that we constantly are not present, and it's a function of a busy, crazy world that we live in. We bring much more joy to our life if we can be present with what we're doing when we're doing it. And if that means we're going to sleep, well, I'm invested in my sleep right now. This is the most important thing I'm doing. If I'm going to exercise, you know what? So you bring that kind of intentionality and focus to all that we do. And I think that's a beautiful metaphor and really helpful, very helpful to me, and I hope helpful to you. And if you hadn't already heard it. All right, well, this is a good one. This is the so-called, I like to spoon feed, and I like to make things easy, and I want to take care of people, and I want to make things easy for other people. But the reality is, everyone loves to be patted on the back. Don't we all love when people say, "You did a great job. That was so great. You were awesome." Yeah. And just, my wife always said, "Take your hand, go reach behind yourself, okay? Because I'm not doing it for you, okay?" She did it yesterday, actually. And don't we all love to be affirmed? But boy, don't we hate when people push our buttons? That person who was trying to twist my arm to give ivermectin, that was a real button pusher, and it's those agitating, difficult encounters. Boy, you want to learn something? Go to your deepest, darkest, difficult patient. Don't run from them. Run toward them. Head toward the roar. You heard the story about the lions. What to do if you're being attacked by lions? So what would be your? I'm getting the hell out of here, right? Well, of course, what you didn't realize is the male lion is in front of you, making all the sound. The female lion, the hunters, they've surrounded you from behind, and you're running right into them. This is the old head toward the roar. That roar, he's gonna freak out. He's not gonna know what to do. Okay. And the challenge is right in front of you. You sort of head right to it. And, not that you don't need learning opportunities 10 times a day, but you need those opportunities to grow. And so it's the button pushing, it's the difficult patient. Actually, you could turn it around rather than running from it, run toward it and figure out how you can make it work differently. And I think there's where the growth opportunity lies. So, yeah, so head toward the roar. Yeah, so I like to say when the residents join us now, family medicine is a 3-year residency versus surgery, 5 years, versus surgery and orthopedics, or 6 years, or surgery and neurosurgery 7 or 8 years. These are just phenomenal amounts of time and training and energy that are put into these tasks. And you come in with this, I'm going to be the best, and I'm going to, and you just, whoa, rein it in, put the lasso on. This is a marathon. This is not a race. And by the way, if you think it's a race, there is no there. I once heard a speaker, this phenomenal person of grand stature in medicine with 300 published articles and boards on this and the preventative task force and that, and chairman of this and he said, the greatest lesson I could tell you guys is I've been to the top and there's nothing there. Like, really? You just blew my bubble, But the idea that, there's the destination, it's not the destination, right? It's if it's about now, then it's about the journey. And you got to bring intentionality and understand this is not a race. This is a career. And for residents, I tell them, and your career with me is going to be 1,000, what is it they say, that famous proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Well, I tell them, your journey is going to be 1,000 days. And today's the first one. So you have 1,000 days with us, 3 years. That's what you got. That's it. So journey of 1,000 days is going to begin with a single day. And so it really is about training for the long haul and what we need to do to think in that context, and not like, I'm going to get there. Oh, when I get my degree. Oh, when I get my boards. Oh, when I get my house. Oh, it doesn't end. It does not end. So metaphor for life. So, it's interesting. Family medicine is a very interesting discipline. And there are people in the profession who are incredibly deep and rich and gifted and thoughtful. And there are people in the profession who couldn't do anything else, unfortunately. And what the world sees when you're in the discipline of medicine, in the hierarchy of medicine, is everyone views the world from a fiscal perspective, shall we say, And I have felt, talk about the daggers of feeling like a minority when people judge you for what you do or what you look, I don't know, what you look like. Well, in medicine, the idea that you're going to be judged because you chose a field that has no real expertise. You're just a jack of all trades, And I thought when I went into it 33 years ago, I thought, my God, this is exactly what I want to do. The dean of Cornell Medical School called me into his office and he said, why are you going into family medicine? People from Cornell Medical School don't go into family medicine. I said, well, people from Cornell become leaders in medicine. And I said, well, what's to prevent me from becoming a leader in family medicine? And he looked at me as if I had 3 eyes, and sent me on my way. But the idea that there's this judgment, that occurs when people see you and don't know you. And it hurts. It hurts. So that said, I tell our residents, and you know what? With all of that, you're blessed with something. You have a front row seat. Rachel Naomi Remen says, the great writer, she says, being a primary care is like having a front row seat on life. Okay. Now that's really good when the play is great. Okay. But when it ain't, you wish you were in the back row, and you're not, you're right there, And so So we have this beautiful metaphor. It's like seeing everything. You're seeing it all, you know, and value. People value in the real world. People really do value us. It's just in the ivory. If you live in the ivory tower, you're at the lower rung, you know, if you will. And so I've since learned to kind of sublimate that and turn that into once people know who you are, you know, you know, once people know you, I think they're less apt to judge you. Judgment. What do they say about judgment? Judgment is the end of inquiry. It's the end of inquiry, you know? So I tell our residents, well, the residents tell me, Dr. Orientale, what a day I had. I delivered a baby, and then we went and we pronounced someone. And I said, and you know, there's an exasperation that they feel after doing that. That is like, you know, high and low, the extremes. And I say, you know what? You're the only person in this hospital who does that. You keep that in mind. And then one of them came back to me and said, that's not true, Dr. Orientale. I go, what do you mean? Go, well, anesthesia was in doing the epidural on the mom, and then anesthesia was trying to help us intubate the dying person. I go, all right, it was us and anesthesia. We're the only two specialties. We're the only two specialties who see it all. Okay, cradle to grave. But the idea is, you know, we really do have this gift. And wow, what a lesson. You know, I work with elders, and I'm always minding them. You know, if I'm minding them for, how did you do it? You know, I tell my 80-year-olds, you know, you're genetically superior. You're my 90-year-olds, you are genetically superior. You know, and I go, I am? I go, yes, you are. You have outlived anyone else, you know, the typical life expectancy. And isn't it beautiful what people can teach us as they age and they're on their journey if we ask them. So the journey, yeah, life in all its splendor. And it is what we do as primary care physicians. So the converse of that is what we do when we don't know what we're doing. And it could be you all know, it could be a very lonely place. When you're sitting in the room and you just don't know, and you don't want to ask, and you don't want to think, and you could feel very, very isolated and alone. And that, all I want to say is that's a death knell. You know, for me, that's when I need to remember I'm not alone. I have friends. They're on speed dial. I can phone a friend. I have colleagues outside the room. I've cultivated relationships with people. I have a lot that I can cash in, you know, and I expand the system. So, you know, this is a team sport. The team sport. We're not in it alone. You know, I used to think I'm going to be the best doctor. Yeah, that's a myth. There's no best doctor. There's no best provider. This is a team sport, and we need to work together. We got to figure out how to do that best. And God knows we have a long ways to go in the United States. So my current chairman gave me this one. He goes, when in doubt, just expand the system. And I thought, wow, that's a powerful reminder of where we're going with this work. Yeah. So this one, my daughters were in elementary school, Button Ball Elementary in Glastonbury, Connecticut. And I was at the water fountain, and I'm drinking water, and I saw this sign. It said, characters define what you do when nobody is looking. It was like for elementary kids. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. I'm going to take that with. That's a really powerful statement, because for those of us who've been bred in the feel-good, affirming healthcare system because we're overachievers, and let me tell you, there are a lot of overachievers in medicine. You know what? It doesn't matter what your superior thinks of you or what you have to unlearn that and learn the fact that, you know what's really important? It's like, my God bless my wife. We take long walks on the beach in Rhode Island, and she's got her one little purse for sea glass and her other bag for garbage. And I'm like, do you have to do this again? No, you know what? No one's looking, but she doesn't like the fact that there's garbage running up on the beach. And I thought, you know, this is exactly what you do when you don't care what other people think, you know? And I thought, what a powerful statement for ourselves and in our behavior. Like, you know, give generously without caring that you're noted for your giving. You know, figure out ways to be generous with your time, your spirit, your energy, and not care what others think. You know, because in medicine, if anything, there's a power. there's a very powerful undercurrent of needing to be needed. In fact, I think if you ask me, I think the norm in medicine is pathologic. That is, there's such a powerful drive. Can we mute them? Or... Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's such a powerful drive in physicians of what they call codependence, that if they don't understand that and quickly understand that, you're just setting themselves up for a life of really not very successful health. And I think the idea that you know, you do good because it's the right thing to do, not because someone's watching you. You know, this is such an important lesson, especially for the do-gooders who do it because their teacher was watching them. And I think there's a lot of this in medicine, and we remind ourselves we do good by our patients because it's the right thing to do. And so I love this. I love this statement. So these are my 10 pearls from my David Letterman top 10 list, or my top 10 golf tips for dummies. But these are the top 10 for providers, and I hope they somewhat encapsulate some of your thoughts on what's going to make you a successful healthcare